In Saturday's video, we were looking at how the market behaves when it is kind of showing something that could be considered a lie, where the dollar is moving up, the 10-year is moving up, and the SPY is heading up all at the same time. And you notice when we are caught in that lie, we experience some turbulence, and when we are caught in some kind of lie, we experience big reactions. So we need to pay attention right now because we are seeing that behavior. We showed on Saturday you were in one of those red zones, and that means that we could be experiencing turbulence, but we also noted in the past that it took a long time for us to experience that. That can continue going forward, so let's get into some technical analysis and get you guys some weekly expected moves. Jumping into the SPY, just a quick note, the course down in the description. We're going to go over a lot of things today that match up with the course. This is what we do in these shorter time frames. You only have a week left to get that for 90% off. You have 7 days left. So if you want to dedicate yourself to some learning today, get that while it's on a discount account. Even if you're not ready for it, the price is going way up. So even if you get it now and you dedicate yourself to learning in a month or two after you stick around with this channel, it could be a good thing. But let's just really focus on the technicals today. What were we looking for last week? Last week, we really talked about this block in here, and all we had was this price action right here, and we just said, just wait, be patient, wait for this to form. We noticed that something like that did form, and we crossed up on the 2-hour just like in the past. So this is all very good for the market, and that's why the first thing we need to pay attention to is the upside weekly expected move. 602.83. 602.83 is going to be important. We noticed that the daily expected moves do not have a lot of implied volatility. So right away, should I be thinking, hey, 602.83 can happen? Well, when these are really tight and something unexpected does happen on the daily scale, we do notice that a big reaction can come. We have to be open to it, but right now it would more likely lean towards some sort of consolidation in this area with the implied volatility. The bottom side weekly expected move, 588.19. Obviously, if the 2-hour does rotate down, we have a good shot to get down to there, and then we still want to watch out in case we find those spacing out signals, right? We do not have major macro signals, at least on the SPY and the Qs, or at least the 2-hour signal to tell us, hey, this thing can start to turn down on a weekly chart. The 2-hour curling down would be a hint of that, but we know tricks happen, so I just want you to be open to, if this happens early on in the week, that we see some kind of move in the upward direction. Now, I think the 30-minute will come into play on Monday. I think something we can pay attention to is this is a great move, and you're moving sideways, and you're seeing that start to get a little bit tighter. We'll see if this 30-minute can just rotate up. That would be a good thing, but it might mean, since this is curled down right now, that we need to continue to consolidate, maybe paying attention to 592.54, our bottom side daily expected move. And our top side move of 598.48 means if we do this early on in the day, we get down by that center line and then we curl back up, we can actually see that next move higher. And we will have a decent amount of buyers in order to see that next move be pretty good to the upside. So what we're paying attention to now is the 30-minute is saying pullback. And if that wants to curl up, then that would say that this most likely does continue. Now, one thing to just remind you again on the 2-hour is, but if that 30-minute turns down too far, that 2-hour could react down and that could get a little bit uglier. That's why we have weekly expected moves. Just so you know, we do have these weekly expected moves for a key reason. We calculate them every single week and we put them out on Patreon for all the stocks that we cover and more. Okay, so AMC, GME, DJT, even I'm going to put on there this week. But just to note, this is a 68% zone. This is not a 100% zone. And it's actually rather tighter this week than what we've seen in the past. So something that can happen is if something unexpected does happen, we can expect something a little bit worse. So just be cautious if that 2-hour turns down. If it creates a reversal signal early on, hey, that's what I'd pay attention to. Right now, I am leaning towards the 30-minute getting down towards the downside or moving sideways before we see the next move higher. Watch out for turbulence, so that's where you really want to pay attention. If the Qs are able to curl down on this 2-hour, we can end up down towards a lower expected move here of 496.84. Now that would still be in a buy zone, so if we do that very early on in the week, it's very quick. Just watch out because that could turn up by Friday. Now we do notice we do have a top side move, which is 514.74, and this 2-hour is going positive, so we need to pay attention to that, especially as we're moving sideways. We're really holding a good level here right before we might get through resistance. So something we can pay attention to is the 30-minute. We can go over to the 30-minute. We can see that that's crossed down. We're moving sideways. We're letting that 5-day staggered moving average just move up to retest, right? We were able to take it back. So all this looks pretty good. You just need that 30-minute maybe to base out, go sideways, or even drop down for a moment to really get that to be a nice swing up. And I think that's when the real bigger move does come, right? I think the bigger move is still coming. These were some nice rip arounds, but you can see we're still relatively controlled in here. We're even looking like this. So we do have to pay attention if that 2-hour crosses down. We do have to pay attention if that 30-minute can whip back up, because we haven't seen, I would say, a major move out of this consolidation for the Qs. So I think if we're able to base out down here, we could break to the upside. If we're going to curl down that 2-hour, we might already be breaking down and heading towards a weekly expected move. So yeah, just keep in mind 514.74. These are pretty tight, and when they're tight, you do gravitate towards them even easier. When they're a little bit wider, you can not test them as much. But now that they're pretty tight, I'd really be paying attention to signals around weekly expected moves this week. Sorry guys about my voice. I was a little sick and I'm getting over it right now. But we do see Apple giving some major weakness signals here, and this is worrisome, but you are still above the 5. So there's potential that this is just resistance. We're just really trying to break through that. And if that 30-minute curls up, you know that I'm leaning towards a test of something like 230, 250, 233, something in there. And we can look at weekly expected moves, which is on Patreon if you want to join. After this video, I'm actually going to put up the weekly expected moves, and we're going to talk about these individual stocks and see what good setups could come if certain things happen. That way we have multiple options going into this week, and we're going to do that over on Patreon. The reason that you have to be a little bit worried about all those 30 minutes is the 2-hour does see that divergence as well, and it's very low. So it's kind of one that looks like, you know, I like these to be overbought when I see them. So this could be interesting, because if that 2-hour does cross, it's really close to the center line, and it's really close to the center line for the RSI. So this could be worrisome. This is something that can roll down daily charts, so really pay attention if this 2-hour curls down and we're really not able to hold up at a weekly expected move or 225.84. That's been a key level for us. So we just have to pay attention to that 2-hour crossing down, because Apple's showing a bunch of divergence. We can see how this is overall getting kind of tight in here. So a big move is most likely coming for Apple on a week where a big move is not expected, which is a little bit worrisome. We'll see if that's in the upward direction, because right now everything is pointing green. The 30-minute just looks like it's trying to consolidate, and then see if we can get that next curl up for Apple. Tesla, this one is going to be a bullish and bearish case, right? Because we do notice that we're rather flat up here. We notice that there's potential for a double top at this point. So that 2-hour is rotated up, but it's kind of lackluster right now. So we are consolidating, moving sideways. You can see that very obviously, this small consolidation in here. We consolidated in here. We got that break to the upside. Fantastic. That's what we were looking for. And we had a weekly expected move last week. That's going to change. So you got to get a part of Patreon to get the weekly expected move for Tesla. If that 2-hour rotates down, it's kind of looking like a double top. So we don't want to do that. We want the 30-minute to be able to remain positive. And the good part about the 30-minute and the bad part is that it's positive and it's at a pretty high level. So you still have the chance to just retest quickly and then turn back up, or you're not even crossed over yet. Maybe you just start to make that upward move. We retest the breakout and then we head to a weekly expected move. So this all could be some kind of consolidation now to actually break higher, and we'll find out throughout the week. But if that 30-minute crosses down, I still have to treat it seriously, because you do notice that all the way across this, we do have potential for the double top on the 30-minute with this move right here, and we showed it on the 2-hour. And then we notice on the 30-minute for even this right here, or if you connect these highs, you do see that divergence one more time. So it does say there is weakness here. It means watch out if these things cross down. You are still in a bullish trend overall. So if they cross back up, that can still be a good thing. But if you start to lose some key levels, you start to roll over a 2-hour chart, it doesn't look as good from here, because we might just take out this bundle and this might be some kind of trap, which is something we kept pointing out on Friday. Amazon is due for some kind of 2-hour turn up, unless this thing is just going down and down and down. But what did we say to pay attention to if this 2-hour is going to turn up? Well, see if that divergence completes and see if you don't have to manage a trade, Right now, you do have a bunch of divergence, but it's just not seeing that positivity. You've never been able to take back the 5. So I understand if someone's taking a play with this, like I totally get it, because this is a massive divergence, and you see it massive down here on the RSI at the same time. So I get it. But we got to see if that can take back the 5. If that can take back the 5 and that 2-hour crosses, we're way more confident. If this would roll down, then that would be definitely a management of the trade there. Make sure to manage risk, guys. We are, even though this is a great move, we are potentially going into a time where if we do go higher, it could be a trap that then causes some kind of correction. And then we would see people maybe pile on to, oh, stock market crash for a while, and then we'll see if we get basing out signals. If we don't, we can curl over weekly charts and just note that a lot of these stocks don't necessarily have those signals right now. If we pull back on Amazon, that's what this seems like right now. If we want to keep pulling back, we want a 2-hour pop that then pulls back further and we see a 2-hour divergence, that's when we'll really pay attention, because we just want to see if this daily can ever turn back up. We don't have those reversal signals up here, so I think we do have some time left. And this is what's interesting, saying there is time left, but we see signals from Nvidia that do not look strong at this point. This is a reach up to get people probably bullish, and then we see that rug pull by Friday, and we confirm daily divergence up here, daily divergence that's significant on the MACD and RSI at the same time. So why do I need to be paying attention to this? Because these little divergences on the daily scale, this is something that's very, very good to know in the course, how to learn how to actually utilize these indicators by understanding divergence, how to understand the positioning of the MACD. Very good stuff, because this, if you see this on a chart and you know about it, right, from taking the course, well, you can look at the weekly and just say, uh-oh, that is going to potentially turn down the weekly chart. If a weekly chart has divergence and it's a big stock like Nvidia, you have to pay attention, especially when there's triple divergence on the RSI. We're just going to say it again. Here, we experienced something bad. We called it out that you are most likely going to go through a period of bad with the lower high. But we said this is most likely going to be a pullback, and we got basing out signals outside of a monthly expected move. This is where Patreon and the course really come together, when you get these big moves and then everyone's bearish on it, but you see that divergence, you see that weakening in momentum, and you're outside of the expected area from the options market. But the problem with this turndown was we didn't have those big reversal signals, right? We just had a swing trade opportunity. But in this case right now, if you were to turn down, which the daily is suggesting can happen for Nvidia, you would be confirming on the weekly in a week where you do not expect, or at least the market, the options market, isn't expecting too much rip around type of behavior. So if you do that on a week that it's not expected, something really bad can start to take place, and I'd be paying attention to that. So if you don't see reversals outside of a weekly for Nvidia, just know this can get really ugly, because you are seeing a weekly cross down on the MACD. Now, if we're going to head upward, all right, what we need to see is this 2-hour able to curl back up, because this is a very bad signal as well. I just want you to notice that we're in a week where not a lot of expected or implied volatility is supposed to be there, but we're noticing some really bad signals, right? We paid attention to when Nvidia did this because it was outside of a monthly expected move, and that's weakening in momentum. What are you seeing here? Well, here you're seeing a reach up, but that ended up creating an overall lower high for your MACD, and it crossed down really close to the center line. So weirdly enough, Nvidia is telling you early on in the week, the 2-hour is weak, the daily is weak, and guess what? The 30-minute is weak as well. So if the 30-minute can turn back up, you might buy yourself some time. You might be able to turn the 2-hour up, and we can get rid of these signals. But if that rotates back down or just stays rotated down, that could mean bad things for Nvidia. And this would add some valid comments to a turn down early on in the day, and that would be AMD. AMD and Nvidia showing some major weakness. AMD showing, hey, a 30-minute that's just kind of like pushing up gradually, and then if that would cross down, maybe we're able to actually make a divergence by a weekly expected move. The good part about this is you would maybe create a little divergence here, but you also could create something on the 2-hour if that's a little more drawn out and a little quick. you could see a triple divergence on the MACD for AMD, and then you could actually see a divergence on the 2 hour in the near price action because you don't necessarily have this signal on the RSI at the same time. So if we can make that signal at the same time, AMD could find a base, and then we could actually end up seeing an upward move in a little bit of time. We just have to see what the price action looks like early on Monday and Tuesday, and then figure out which way this stuff is going to go. That's why we're putting out the video on Patreon going over the weekly expected moves and what trade setups to look out for, if there will be any, going into early this week. Meta, really just two things. You want to be careful if that 2 hour crosses down. Most likely it's heading to a weekly expected move, and we can look for those reversal signals. So we're starting to see some 2 hour charts that are suggesting, hey, if we do pull down, and it looks like the SPY and the Qs might pull down on the 30-minute, they could pull down on the 2 hour, right? And it still might get people bearish enough that, hey, we're just in a buy zone. So if we did make this move, watch out if that's able to base out. If it's not able to base out, if we're not going to see that curl back up, we're not going to see this MACD curl back up with divergence, it can get uglier. Okay, so this is where we treat the downturns very seriously because we could correct at any moment, but we also want to pay attention to those reversal signals because we know this market is kind of ripping people apart. The 30-minute, you're just going to notice at this point, we're just really not liking this 5-day moving average. We keep seeing these wicks. When we take it back, we flush right after. We take it back, we flush right after. We have a trouble remaining above it. So if we can curl up and really take this back and hold it confidently, that's when we can start to see a bigger 2 hour move, right? This 2 hour can go positive. Maybe we head up to close a gap or something like that. And then we'd watch out for little 30-minute divergences in here for Meta. Now, I just said implied volatility is rather low across the board, but for stocks like AMC, GME, and DJT, those also have some high implied volatility. But what do you need to see a good move from AMC and GME to have potential to break through the key level, which we're updating for you right here? 515 is the key level for this week, right? This changes every single week. We've noticed we have drawn to those areas multiple times in the past. So I would have this on my chart if I was trading AMC and GME. This is what you need to get through this week to take the options market off guard, to see that real bullishness come in, and then this is where the battle really begins. So now let's pay attention to the signals. Well, if the 2 hour turns down, that's not a good sign, right? You're really close to going negative. If you make a reversal signal, good, but that doesn't have to form. So what we want to see is if that's able to turn back up, because what you need here is the 2 hour to be positive. It is. You need the 30-minute to be positive and curled up, and then you need the daily. So as we look through, does AMC have a good shot as of how it looks right now without the price action of Monday? 2 hour looks good. 30-minute, ooh, see, that's a problem. There's a problem for the 30-minute, and that is the fact that we curled down here. We're still holding the 5-day moving average, and we're still positive, but we're not curled up. So we need that 30-minute to curl up to see more positivity and really be convinced, hey, this can see a good move. The 2 hours suggesting it's still good. Now, the daily is very important. The daily has to remain curled up in positive territory, and this is why I think AMC was so interesting. Because AMC is holding this block rather well. We can see almost a diamond forming like this. And if we're able to break the upside, well, this daily would not. It refused to curl down last week. So I'd really be paying attention to that. That is interesting. That means the real positivity could just be getting started, and this was just some kind of little pullback. So pay attention to AMC. You have a 2 hour that's good. You have a daily that's good, saying we can go, go, go. It's just the 30-minute that you're having a little trouble. And that went into Friday, so that makes sense. Now, GME, I'm going to update the level for you right now. We do notice that the level from last week, 3104, we got pretty close to it. Now, GME has been known, it's been breaking these levels, and then it used it as resistance for a long time, and then we notice that it changes. So we have to change that level. GME closing at higher levels is a good thing, and now that means that this is most likely moving in the upward direction, but you notice it's pretty slight. It's pretty slight. Implied volatility did increase, but not as much as you would think for this type of move. So very interesting. Earnings around the corner, that can be 50-50. We do notice on the daily scale, if that would curl down, we would still be just thinking pullback. And I really like that level of 23 to 23.50 if we can really base out and turn back up. But we got to see good signals. Does this have a chance to run this week? Well, got to break through to see something crazy, 31.32. Daily is positive in positive territory. Looks like it might need a pullback and has divergence here for the 2 hour chart. So the daily pulling back, if this was a regular stock and we're not going to see something crazy, then we would expect this weakness and momentum to give us a daily pullback. The 2-hour divergence is there. The 2-hour divergence is very significant here. So we need to pay attention to that. Now we do notice that the 2-hour is still positive though. And it's reacting down to the 5-day moving average. If you can keep that and turn back up, totally different story. That's the 2-hour now agreeing with the daily and saying, okay, now we can do it. If the 2-hour keeps pulling down and saying, hey, we might need some more time. The 30-minute is really close to the center line, but is that curled up? No. So for GME, you have just the daily scale really with you here, and it looks like it needs a pullback. But if that 30-minute crosses up, that 2-hour crosses up, because you are still above the 5, this trend most likely would continue. And that would be where you do have one more continuation is where, hey, if this crosses up like this and beats this high, doesn't it look like it's pointing directly towards 31.32? So if the 30-minute can curl up, if the 2-hour can curl up, this looks better. As of right now, it looks like a daily pullback is coming, but that daily is still positive and we still have the 5. So if this 30-minute curls up, I can react. If the 2-hour curls up with it, it's going to be a better move. Volatility crossed down on the daily, crossed down on the weekly, and we're experiencing some positivity, which is exactly what we need to expect. Now we do see a 4-hour here that is crossing down and able to go negative. If we're really going to buy some time here, we could go down and create multiple points of divergence here for the 4-hour to actually make it in the near price action. If we're just going to get something simple, some kind of simple trap, then we could just see a 4-hour move down in some way, and then just be able to curl up at any time with either a higher low or going to make that divergence. And I think the divergence would make sense because you need people to get very bullish, and VIX is overall measuring calls on the SPY a month out, calls and puts. And when it is low, low, low like this, that means a lot of calls coming in. So that's something we need to pay attention to. The fact that the 4-hour has crossed, that's not necessarily a good thing. You're not necessarily seeing reversal for the daily yet. That crossed up briefly and crossed right back down. So we were not really paying attention to that daily curl up for a reason, because it did not look like it was going to hold. We did notice those 30-minute divergences in here that curled down the 2-hour. You can see those same things on the 2-hour here. That's why we weren't really believing, hey, this has a great chance to hold. We're still paying attention to the fact that the daily was curled up for a second, but we're like, if this turns down the next day, which is what the signals are kind of like saying, then this is probably going to be a bigger pullback here for volatility on the 4-hour. And that's exactly what ended up happening. Now, if volatility is going to come on in early on in the week, watch for that 2-hour to curl up. If it's going to be a little bit more dramatic, the 2-hour would curl up. If the 30-minute can curl up, that's where it could be just a brief retest, and then we actually see that curl back down, and we look out for those reversal signals with the 30-minute. As of right now, the most important signal to pay attention to is any time if this is able to curl up in the next, I would say, 2 to 3 days, maybe 4 days, but any time this 4-hour really curls back up, because you will be closer to positive territory. If it does not curl back up, then it most likely says we're still remaining bullish for quite some time. If we violate divergences that could form, we're still going to be bullish for some time. We can get those minor pullbacks and buy ourselves some time and continue this lie. But once the lie actually comes out, and the truth actually comes out, it'll be a reaction from the SPY that will experience some turbulence. So the main takeaway for today is we do not see those big reversal signals out of key levels just yet. We could experience a lot before we're able to do that. We could experience a lower high. We could experience a lot this week. But the main thing is I still believe we are going to make some kind of move outside of this monthly expected move. And so it's great to pay attention to a weekly that's just outside of it, because that move could go directly towards here. You see a little 30-minute divergence in there and you go, oh, that's where the top is going to be in. We're watching the top form and being patient. And patience really helped us here. We just said, hey, we can look for things like this because they happened in the past. And that's what we can do now. Look for those good signals. Look for if our trades are going wrong, we need to manage risk, but look for a great signal to say, okay, this looks like a top. Now I should be ready for a corrective move. I still believe this will be a corrective move, but if it ends up being a crash, then those weeklies will turn down and they will not be able to turn back up, and we will remain in the right move if we don't see reversal signals. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you want to grab the course down there, it is 90% off. Join the Patreon for those weekly expected moves. But I just want to say thank you so much for liking these videos. We are on our way to 10K in this community. We've only been around for less than a year and a half, so I think that's fantastic, and it's all because of you guys. So thank you so much. I hope you have a great Sunday ahead of you and be ready for Monday, because even though it's a small week here, we have some smaller implied volatility. We notice that Ooh, things can actually move pretty good when implied volatility is lower. All right, guys, have a good night. Peace out.